early on in my career, I decided that's the philosophy I was going to adapt. It took me a while to develop a name for it, but it's the philosophy of what the hell.
Yeah.
Something extraordinary is staring you at the face, and you're, should I or shouldn't I? Do I walk into the road less taken or not? And my answer was always, what the hell? Why not? Give it a try.
Today on the Veterans Voice podcast, we're sitting down with retired Lieutenant Colonel Joseph Markusfeld. How's it going, brother?
It's great, and it's great to be here.
Yeah, for sure.
Big fan, thanks.
Dude, I appreciate it. I'm a big fan of yours. I got quite the elaborate biography, and I'm excited to talk to you.
All right, well, hopefully most of it's lies.
Yeah. Well, you're heavily involved in, the Iraqi Air Force, the Afghan Air Force, spent a lot of time as a pilot in the Air Force, went through the Air Force Academy, whole lot of experience in the past 20 years of warfare over in the Middle East. So I want to, digest a lot of that from you to try and learn from it, see where we went right, see where we went wrong, what can we learn from it. And then you also have some really cool philosophies that I want to get into that I definitely relate to, and I think a lot of people relate to as well. So we're going to get into it.
I sure hope so. I'll preface this right now, but by saying a lot of this is my thoughts, if you will.
Yeah.
I got to be in the periphery of a lot of the decision making and planning, and came up with my own opinions and own thoughts based on my experiences. So I couch it with that statement.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, that's the only way we learn, right? We got to hear other people's opinions, other people's philosophies, and say, yeah, I agree. No, I don't agree. And we go on from there. So, well, just go ahead and give us a little bit of background. What'd you do in the military, some of your highlighting moments, and what you do now.
Sure. Well, I started out, went to the Air Force Academy, graduated with a degree in political science in 1998 from the Air Force Academy. I went to Pilot Training Advanced Air Force Base. I was selected to fly KC-135s. Flew into the Special Operations Support piece of this KC-135 from 2001 until 2005. From there, I went to become a pilot trainer and instructor, flying T-37s and then T-6 Texan 2s. After about a year and a half of that, I got bored, and I volunteered to become one of the first air advisors to embed with the Iraqi Air Force and help stand up their pilot training in Cessna 208s, Cessna 172s, and I later went back again in T-6 Texan 2s to help the Iraqis stand those up. I didn't know it at the time, but that became my job for the next 5 years. I was an air advisor, and I would go back and forth with my team. I led an 11-man team in Iraq, Afghanistan, and the Ukraine, helping to set up advisory programs, helping to help stand up their Air Force and work partnership with them. I was also one of the first instructors at the Air Advisor Academy, training other air advisors for the Air Force. When I finished up with that, I flew MC-12W reconnaissance aircraft in Afghanistan for 9 months. And then I returned back to McConnell Air Force Base flying KC-135s doing special operations support. I retired out of there in 2018.
Wow, that's quite the career. And today you still fly and still instruct.
Yeah, I'm actually an instructor pilot in 737s for United Airlines up in the Denver Training Center. We're kind of unique. We actually have line pilots who do our training. So I also fly as a 737 captain.
Okay, awesome. Wow, what a career that is. Well, let's get into it. Somewhere along the lines in that career, you developed this philosophy of, I think you call it the philosophy of what the hell.
It's the philosophy of what the hell.
Yeah, I was going to try and sugarcoat it, but I don't think you can.
There's no way, and there's no need to. That's the beauty of it.
Yeah, exactly.
It's what the hell. And it really comes down to the idea of going your own way, taking the road less taken, stepping into the dark, maybe being the first one to ever do it, versus staying on the tried and true path. Plenty of us stay in the tried and true path. And within the military, a lot of people stay, they're in their career field, they're in a tried and true path. And even as they transition from veterans, they're in a tried and true path. They want to stay within the comfort zone. And at some point, everyone is given an opportunity to do something extraordinary. But that extraordinary thing often takes you off the safe path. And the people, the difference makers, the people who do the transformative things, in my opinion, have a what the hell moment. It's not, you can do the math on it. You can do the risk assessment on it. You can, weigh the costs and balances of any decision you make. But at some point in the dark by yourself, you have to make the choice. Am I going to do this? And the people who do it are the ones who go, you know what the hell?
Yeah.
And early on in my career, I decided that's the philosophy I was going to adapt. It took me a while to develop a name for it, but it's the philosophy of what the hell.
Yeah.
Something extraordinary is staring you at the face, and you're, should I or shouldn't I? Do I walk into the road less taken or not? And my answer was always, what the hell? Why not? Give it a try. Maybe it'll be successful. Maybe it'll be a wild failure. But you know what? It won't be boring.
So what is the difference between a rogue soldier or a rogue person in general or a renegade?
The rogue renegade. So the other half of that philosophy is the philosophy of the renegade. I'm glad you asked about this. If you take a look at the dictionary, somebody who goes rogue is going against something.
Right.
They're just pushing against a norm, right? They're just doing something on their own, off the beaten path, but they're not real. They're going against something, pushing against something they dislike. A renegade is going towards something new. They're going, if you look in the Merriam-Webster dictionary, it talks about somebody who goes against tradition and somebody who goes against the norms towards something new. So renegade is trying something new, something extraordinary, something different, an outside of the box thought, where a rogue is just pushing against, is just randomly pushing against something.
Yeah, more of a rebel.
More of a rebel, but not towards anything.
Yeah.
They're looking, they just want to be against something, but they don't really want to be for anything. In my opinion, in my philosophy, a renegade is somebody who wants to be for something new. To try something that's never been done before, that's outside of the norms.
I see. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I'm trying to kind of piece this together, how this is populated in my life, but I kind of want to hear throughout your career, what were your what the hell moments, or what were your moments where you decided to be a renegade?
Well, the perfect example, I'll micro to the macro, there's been a bunch.
I love using micro to macro analogies.
Yeah, the micro to macro analogy is when I decided to become an air advisor. My career path was to fly as an instructor pilot, be successful there, go back to the staff, be on the command staff, working for the general, be an aide, move on, potentially do a Pentagon tour, on and on and on, and so on and so forth. I was fully understanding that at some point I was going to get called back and deploy, and probably deploy on a 365 assignment to Iraq, a full year assignment, which is fine.
Right.
It was going to come for all of us. At the time, I started looking through the assignment availability. A new assignment called Air Advisor popped up, and it was this wild concept that we were going to take actual Air Education Training Command airmen, and we were going to use them to train our partner air forces from the ground up. Now, there was an element in the Air Force at the time, as the 6th Special Operations Squadron, that was there to advise and assist foreign air forces, but their job was to take an existing capability and then move it into alliance with the United States, compatibility with U.S. forces, that sort of thing. How can they support U.S. operations? This was something entirely different. Rather than using a special operations force, we were going to use training airmen to be on the ground, embed with our allies, and then build them for the ground up. And it made sense because who turns a pedestrian into an airman? It's the training command guys. Yeah. And we were going to try something even more extraordinary. Is we're going to try and create an organic training capacity in Iraq in the middle of an active war. It had never been done before.
Not the most ideal training environment.
Not the most ideal training environments, no. And we were going to fly Cessnas doing it too.
Wow.
So yeah, it was, at this point, most people thought this was insanity, including our leadership. So I kind of saw it though. I saw the vision and I thought this could be something special. Given the right love and the right dedication of people, this could be something transformative. So I said, what the hell? And I talked with my family, and I volunteered for a year in Iraq. Which, how many people? Very few people.
Yeah, very few.
Sign up for a 365 downrange in Iraq. And then I showed up there, and we were landed at Fort Operating Base Warrior. no resources. I pulled my desk out of the dumpster. We built our own stuff.
Yeah.
We didn't have computers for quite some time. We had Iraqis. The Iraqis dropped a bunch of Iraqi students off with nothing. They didn't even have tents for them to live in. So it wasn't a function of building a pilot training program. It's a function of building the logistical support to handle these students so they could go to a pilot training program. The aircraft that we were flying, some got flown in. Others we built out of Sealand containers.
Whoa.
Yeah, they pulled the parts out and they handed us wrenches, and of course we had competent people showing us what to do. This wasn't we weren't following it like an IKEA kit, but we were
always missing a piece anyways.
Yeah, we were missing extra parts there. What are they for? Whatever. But we actually built our own airplanes.
Wow.
And we were building from the ground up. And the conventional thought behind this mission was we were going to fail by January. That was the expectation.
Who was expecting that? Who was saying that?
At the time, it was Minsticky, the multinational commando North Iraq.
Okay.
There was an expectation that we were probably going to try our best. This is September of 2007.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're gonna do our best, and it's just not feasible. It was a good try, guys. And by January, it was the probability was we're going to scrub the mission. And one of the advantages to that was they didn't pay too much attention to us up there. Mm-hmm. We were outside of the big Army, big Air Force norm mission of rebuilding Iraq. We were kind of these weird little guys up north doing Lord knows what. Who cares, right? I don't know. They're still up there. Is anything? Okay, whatever.
Yeah.
And that gave us a lot of freedom to operate. Our success criteria given to us was 6 sorties a week.
Sortie is what?
Flights.
Okay.
Training missions. If we could fly 6 training missions a week, we would be considered a wildly successful program. When I left in 2008, we were flying 8 a day.
Wow. There you go. What the hell?
What the hell?
Yeah. How was that experience? I mean, it kind of put us in the moment with you back in 2007, going from nothing. You're literally trying to find these guys places to sleep, and now they're flying aircraft 8 times a day. How was that?
It was incredible. We had some extraordinary leadership at the squadron level and at the group level that gave us a lot of freedom to operate. They gave us a lot of freedom to do what we thought was right.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really a bunch of guys who were all instructor pilots in the Air Force. Rather than being hands tied by a stack of regulations, 6 feet thick, we were told, hey, do what you think is right. And that is liberating.
Yeah.
That is so liberating.
That's for sure. As an enlisted guy, that is absolutely what you want to hear.
Yeah. Do what you think is right.
Yeah. We trust you.
We trust you to do what's right.
Yeah.
And we did. And then for the working with the Iraqis themselves, this concept was to take old Iraqi pilots and then train them up in the Western way and let them become effective air forces. Retrain Iraqi fighter pilots to fly, modern Western aircraft. And we found that was a failing strategy, both in Iraq and Afghanistan. Have you ever seen the movie Untouchables?
I don't think so.
Okay. There's a great quote in there, and it's talking about corruption.
Mm-hmm.
If you're dealing with corruption, or if you're dealing with people, if you need to do something anew, don't pick an apple out of the barrel, pick it off the tree.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where we finally realized that training the older Iraqi pilots, while they were dedicated, they were good guys. They truly were. I mean, they were people who wanted to do the right thing for their country. You're really teaching an old dog new tricks. Plus, you're dealing with the challenges, I'm sure, as well, as an ODA guy, the challenges of an entirely different culture.
For sure.
And so we stopped focusing our efforts on retraining older pilots, and we started training the new guys.
I see.
And the great thing is, a 21-year-old lieutenant is a 21-year-old lieutenant across the world. They like girls, they like cars. You bounce them off the wall a couple times, they stop acting up. And you know what? They're absolutely brand new in their thoughts.
Eager, curious to learn.
No preconceptions. And especially within the Arab culture, there's no, they aren't as conditioned in the honor, the honor as a zero sum.
Oh, I see.
Which is integral to anyone who's been downrange and knows that honor concept, and that their honor is a zero sum game and is absolute at all times, to the point that they won't take instruction anymore if it impinges on their perception of their honor.
Exactly.
These are lieutenants. They're just kids. So in a sense, they haven't filled their honor bucket up. They haven't filled their WASTA bucket up. So it was very easy for us to sit there and give them information, and they were receptive to that information. I am so proud of them because those kids are now the squadron commanders in Iraq. They're flying F-16s out there very effectively, I might add.
Yeah, wild to think about because you were training them. They were flying F-16s to combat ISIS.
It was actually before I trained the guys who flew the F-16s to combat ISIS.
Okay.
So I was there in 2007 before ISIS really spun up. But then again, we had advisors that took them all the way to the point where they were the pointy end of the spear for fighting ISIS.
Wow.
And they did it effectively too. Why? Because we started them at that level and then built them up. And I always call them my sleeper cell because the beautiful thing about having them too, when we're talking about irregular warfare, is that we're starting generational change there. And if you read any of the British accounts of regular warfare, the guys who do it right are the Brits. We don't.
Yeah. Just real quick, how would you define irregular warfare?
Irregular warfare is basically, for my part of it, was not necessarily direct action the way a lot of people think, but like building hearts and mind capacity.
Right.
Changing the fundamentals of a nation so that they start aligning with what we consider to be Western values. They become, they value a peaceful relation more so than the conflict.
Yeah. So more of the humanitarian, how can we help these people?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, I can tell you a story from Afghanistan. I'm sure we'll get to it, where we functionally defeated the Taliban in a day,
right?
In a province.
Okay.
But that irregular warfare is not. It's not the standard direct action. It's not kill people, break their stuff, and we just keep beating on you until you surrender.
Right.
It's getting it so that we create this fundamental groundswell of change, so that in a generation we have a U.S. ally.
Yeah. Yeah, man, that's what it's all about. We talked recently on the podcast about how America has historically just been the hammer in all these wars, but we've kind of lacked in the humanitarian aspect of it, and that's how you really make change. That's how you win people over. It's through the hearts and minds, not just wiping them off the planet.
Exactly, exactly, and that it's a critical mission. The challenge we have, though, since we're going down the rabbit hole in America, is we're incredibly impatient. We want to see an airstrike which knocks out the leadership, and great victory in 90 days.
Right.
We want the 90-day victory.
Yeah.
Irregular warfare at its core is a 15-year operation because you have to deal with about a generation and a half before as Mao talked about, insurgents swim like fish through the ocean. To dry the ocean takes about a generation and a half. So you have to at best give it 15 years, and that's only if you're doing it right from day one.
I see.
If you're screwing it up from day one, then that 15-year clock doesn't start until you start doing it correctly.
Right.
And you're playing the long game. Americans traditionally, we have a major problem playing the long game.
So as an advisor for, early days, Iraqi Air Force, Afghan Air Force, what were some early obstacles that you guys encountered? How did you get over them?
The first most challenging we had was cultural differences. We had some serious cultural differences. And this, I think, is really blends itself to my, what the hell renegade philosophy. You first of all have to understand where you're at. And the way I describe it is human terrain. Your average general leadership in any military is going to look at the landscape, the airscape, the spacescape, the cyberscape, all these things, but very rarely do we look at the people on the ground.
Humanscape.
The humanscape. And so when we're in Iraq, you have to understand you're going to spend the first 4 months of your entire tour drinking chai.
Right.
You're going to sit around and drink chai until it gurgles out of your ears. you are going to talk about everything but the mission. And in the way we're built as Americans, it's like, why aren't we getting to the task? There's the task at hand and we're not getting after it. What the hell? Why are we not doing this?
A different kind of what the hell.
Yeah, different kind of bad what the hell.
Yeah.
Yeah, why are we getting after the task?
Yeah.
We have an objective to meet in this meeting. We're not meeting the objective. In their culture, in a tribal culture, both the Afghan and Iraqi cultures, their attitude is, I can't work with you unless I know you.
For sure.
And
rightfully so, too.
Well, it comes to high trust, low trust societies.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you've ever heard the concept of a high trust, low trust society or not.
I haven't. Makes sense though, but go ahead and dive into it.
Okay, sure. We are going down rabbit holes.
Hey, let's go.
Okay, a high trust society is much like the United States.
Right.
Culturally, we trust each other. The example is if you move to the neighborhood and a new neighborhood, and you forgot your lawnmower. And your lawn looks like crap.
Mm-hmm.
And you go to the neighbor, hey, I'm new in the neighborhood. I'm sorry. The delivery driver didn't drop off my lawnmower. Can I borrow yours for the day and just get my lawn up to speed? Chances are the neighbor's going to say, yeah, sure. Welcome to the neighborhood, and hand you the lawnmower. With the expectation that you are going to return it back. You're going to return it back in the condition that you found it. And you are going to, if something happens, then you'll replace it.
Yeah.
In a low trust society, you're not a member of my clan. So if you give me your lawnmower and I sell it, that's you. You're stupid.
Interesting.
I can't trust you. I can't trust that I'm going to get my lawnmower back from you. I don't know you. I don't know your people. I don't know your family. Why on earth would I give you my lawnmower? So we spend 4 months of any air advisor tour drinking chai to a point where they're willing to loan us their lawnmower.
Because they're a low trust society.
Because it's a low trust society. It's very tribal. It's very, and that's just the way tribal societies operate.
Mm-hmm.
It's very clannish. And we saw that especially in Afghanistan. A perfect example is I was working as a liaison with the Iraqi Air Force general, a Iraqi contractor, and one of our acquisitions officers who was kind of handling the transition of the money. And during the conversation, the local contractor slid an envelope of cash across the table at the Iraqi general that I was advising. And, from a straight American perspective, what does that look like to you? Bribery. Yeah. Corruption.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God, this is corruption. This is bribery. It was, and the young acquisitions officer, God love him, thought for sure that they were just witnessing like a crime,
right,
and were freaking out. And I had to be like, all right, everyone, time out, stop. And let me take my young LT over and let me explain what just happened.
Mm-hmm.
Low trust society. There is no trust implicit trust between the contractor and the general. So the contractor just slid money to the general to prove he had skin in the game. It was proof that, hey, I am giving you some of my resources to prove that I'm serious about this contract and that I'm going to show up.
Yeah, and us as Americans, we would see that as bribery.
Yeah, they saw it. For them, it was a down payment, down payment, if you will, proof of good intent.
Interesting. That's so cool. I love learning about new perspectives. That's a new one. Yeah,
and when you cage it in that sense, all of a sudden it makes total sense.
So why do we consider bribery a bad thing then? Because it's not like here in America I could pay the police officer to get out of a ticket. Like I would go to jail for that.
Well, it's a different concept. I mean, there's it's what's perceived as bribery, and it's again all perception. And this is the biggest challenge. Is that absolutely, you pay a police officer to get out of a ticket.
Right.
That's bribery. That's kind of universal bribery. Everyone knows what that is.
Yeah, that's true.
But we have this perception of what bribery looks like because we see it through an American lens. You see it through 27, 45 years of experience through American eyes. And the biggest challenge that we had was, first of all, taking ourselves out of our own preconceptions and starting to try and see things from their perspective. And then as advisors, as liaisons, trying to get our leadership to see it from that perspective.
Yeah.
because now I have to explain what just happened to a general officer who hasn't been through the same training and hasn't drunk on the 4 months worth of chai with the Iraqis. So he doesn't understand what he's looking at because, again, he's looking at it through an American lens. Our job as air advisors, probably the biggest challenge, was to start looking at it through their lens and understanding their culture and their wants, beliefs, hopes. And until you can build that foundation, which takes time, you can't go any further.
We're talking about culture. Do you mind if I ask you about a story real quick? It was about when, I think it was in Afghanistan, when you guys launched that new ramp.
I'd be Iraq.
Okay, Iraq.
This is all a true story.
Okay.
And
it's a salient example of like the cultural differences between Western and Eastern culture.
And we launched we had just built a new ramp. And I preface this story with saying that there is cultural context here.
Right.
And that the Iraqis are the most generous people. They have the biggest hearts and most generous people. From Afghans and Iraqis, we could learn as Westerns hospitality
for sure. So,
but we just built them a new ramp for the aircraft, and the Iraqi Air Force said we can't park an aircraft on it yet. Like, why couldn't we park an aircraft on it? Because it is cursed. What? Don't worry, we'll take care of it. Okay. And at this point, I'm just back in my office doing my job when I see the squadron commander, my students and the rest of the squadron leading a goat on a rope to the ramp. And kind of nonchalant. And so I'm looking around. At this point, I've been there long enough that there's two options. There's two options you can have at this point. You can either freak out or you can get a camera because something weird's going to happen.
Yeah.
So we follow him to the ramp, and they're like, well, we need to bless the ramp. And right there on the ramp, he sacrifices the goat, biblical style, right there on the ramp. And then we all anoint our hands, and then we anoint the airplanes, and we anoint the ramp.
Wow.
And then we roasted it, which was actually in rosemary. It was delicious.
Oh, yeah. I've had some rosemary goat over there.
Yeah, roasted it for the rest of the day. It was amazing. Oh, so good. But it was one of those things that wasn't, culturally, you're just like, what is happening? How do I react to this situation? What do I do? And my philosophy's always been, again, walking through the doors, what the hell moment.
What the hell?
I can either freak out, I can go back to my tent and pretend it never happened. I can have a cultural flip out, or I could roll up and, all right, grab a camera. Let's see what's going to happen here. Let's go. Let's see what's going to happen next.
Yeah. Yeah, leading up to that, wasn't there like some flat tires on airplanes?
Oh yeah, that was
stuff?
there were the aircraft that were on the ramp were blowing tires.
Oh man!
So they assumed that the fact that the aircraft on the ramp itself had cursed the aircraft, and the aircraft were blowing tires. So therefore, we had to consecrate the ramp to get the good mojo back to the aircraft. And to be fair, we never blew a tire again. So
I mean, it
never blew a tire again.
That's wild, man. That's what I mean. I think it's so important in life, just in general, to understand different perspectives, different cultures. And, veterans have had the opportunities to go many different places and experience many different cultures. But like you said, what do you do in that moment? Because in that moment, you're different. You're the weird one.
Different
you're
one.
the one. You're the outlier.
But that's the point I'm trying to make. And how many people in life, not just veterans, but throughout the community themselves, have the opportunity to do these things that are, to create these stories, to be a part of the fabric of a culture, and they don't.
Mm-hmm.
And they walk away because it doesn't look like what they're used to seeing.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a hit on the ego, like you want to be right. You don't want to admit there's other cultures out there, but I don't know. I'm finding that's the beauty in life, man. You see all the different cultures, all the different norms, all the different things you didn't know as a westernized human.
And that's what I really, my fundamental concept of, being the renegade, trying something new, saying what the hell, is overcoming that fear, that cultural fear we have of the unknown.
Mm-hmm.
And breaking out of the norms and trying something new.
Mm-hmm.
One of the biggest fears that prevent people from having these extraordinary experiences or being part of something that is absolutely revolutionary, evolutionary, is the fear of being wrong.
Mm-hmm.
The fear of breaking against being smacked back down by those who are still on the beaten path. And we talk renegades. I'll talk Billy Mitchell as an example. In the Air Force, one of our founding fathers, the father of the modern Air Force. He is probably the reason we have an independent Air Force, an advocate for Air Forces. He was court-martialed and censured and died in disgrace. We name bases after him now. We name aircraft after him. There are statues of him. But when he passed away, he died in disgrace because he went against the grain. He went against the norm. He challenged the powers that be, and those powers that be put him back down.
Yeah, for those who don't know who he is, just kind of explain what he was up to.
General Billy Mitchell was one of the founders of the Air Force and was a huge advocate of the independent air arm starting in World War I. And this is back when the airplane was considered to be maybe a kind of useful tool for reconnaissance, but really didn't have much more application.
Mm-hmm.
You know, at the end of the day, it was kind of considered to be more of a toy than an actual effective weapon system. And he was the one who had the concept that it could do so much more. The airplane could do, strategic attack missions. It could negate the power of the battleship through airstrikes. It could support ground forces. It could do all of these amazing things. And the aircraft itself was still in its infancy. So yeah, a Sopwith Camel is not an A-10. It can only do a very limited in this mission set, but he had the vision of what it could be.
Mm-hmm.
Not what it was. The technology wasn't there yet. It hadn't matured to that point, but what it could be. And thought we have got to see this for what it is, this revolutionary transformation. And the powers that be at the time beat him down for it. And then you take another look at guys like Robin Olds, Air Force fighter pilot in Vietnam, one of the most successful fighter commanders of all time, was not very well liked by his senior leadership. So these renegades I talk about, the people who make truly transformative changes have to have the courage to do so because they know they're going against the norms.
Yeah,
they know they're going to push. They're pushing against the path. And you have to have some courage to do that because at the end of the day, if you're wrong, you are very, very lonely.
You're now just the rebel.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, if you're wrong, you're also very lonely.
Yeah.
And everyone knows that. If you're successful, you have your friend group is enormous. And if you screw up, yeah.
Yeah. I have this fascination with like talking about what's the difference between crazy and genius. Like you have your buddy who's going to start this huge business and he's got this big grand idea. You're like, you're crazy, man. And then 2 years later, he's a millionaire, has got this business. And I'm like, he's a genius.
But he was a crazy person until he was successful.
Exactly.
Now, what I like, and to tie it together, this is what I think we as a veteran community can do is we have the courage.
Mm-hmm.
Veterans are courageous. If you had to pick a descriptor,
mm-hmm.
So we can bring that kind of courage into the business place, into the political sphere, into all of those things, as long as if we can harness the courage to step into the dark
mm-hmm.
and try something new. And it takes incredible courage to do that sort of thing. Talking again, if you haven't already figured out, I'm kind of an amateur historian. Talk about courage. Horatio Nelson, you know who he is?
No.
He was a naval commander during the Napoleonic War.
Okay.
And he fought a battle at a place called Trafalgar, where he threw the entirety of the British fleet against a fleet that outnumbered him 2-1 and outgunned him 3-1. And the thing of it is there was no wires, there was no telegraph, there was no radios. He had to make the decision to attack this superior fleet on his own. And the price of failure was the British Empire. It was all the marbles. All the cards were on the deck. The price of his failure was the destruction of his country. And the only asset he is he believed in his men. He believed in the British sailors and the British Jactars. He believed that they could win. And he took that belief and chose to attack. and ended up ending Napoleon's ability to ever conquer Britain, and ended up saving his country. But in that time, I think about the moment that he was sailing towards the enemy fleet that outnumbered him 2-1, what he had to be feeling right then. The amount of courage it took not to turn around and go to safe harbor and do the safe thing, but to truly believe in his men. More cogent example, Jimmy Doolittle. Everyone knows the Doolittle raid.
Yeah.
They were launching B-25 bombers off an aircraft carrier. That is, I mean, I don't think the average person understands how insane that is.
Yeah.
That you talk about crazy. That goes well past crazy into the point of absolute insanity.
Until it worked.
And then he made the decision to launch the raid on Tokyo 250 miles out from their launch point because they were spotted by Japanese intelligence. And he had to make that call and they didn't have enough gas to begin with. He didn't think they were going to all make it. I mean, they thought it was a one-way mission. But they still had to strike. They wanted to strike Tokyo to revenge Pearl Harbor and to show America's enemies that they weren't safe, that we were going to fight back, that we weren't cowed. And in that moment where he launched his B-25 off the deck of an aircraft carrier, knowing full well he didn't have the gas to get back. They weren't landing on the carrier. He didn't have less gas to get to a safe field. He didn't have the gas to get to land. He was going to bomb Tokyo and ditch.
Wow.
But to have the courage to make that decision, knowing that if he failed, it was going to all be on him. And as a matter of fact, when he crashed in China, which he did, he thought he had failed. In his own biography, he thought the mission was a complete failure. He didn't realize that mission may have turned the tide of the war. But he had to make that choice and be the renegade, try something that crazy, and then step into the dark.
Yeah, now I'd call him a genius.
Yeah, now we call him a genius and a hero. He was a Medal of Honor recipient. But at the time, think about the courage that took.
Yeah.
Before history, looks back on it and calls it this incredible, successful raid. The courage it took to be willing to have not only fail, but fail on that epic scale.
Yeah, what do they say the difference of a Medal of Honor and Article 15 is? Success or failure?
Success or failure.
Yeah.
Well, that's what Will Rogers says. The difference between a hero and an average person is they have the same level of bravery. It's just a hero is braver 5 minutes longer.
There you go. I feel like this is a good segue, and you kind of touched on it, but risk aversion. How have you seen risk aversion in the military? We'll start there. Kind of hurt us per se, and how have you seen, maybe leadership that were less risk adverse excel?
Well, all right, we're getting into my philosophy. So I'm going to caveat everything I say this is the opinions of Joey Markusfeld, not the United States Air Force or anyone I'm affiliated with, just me. But I think part of the problem is we were a peacetime military fighting a war. Whereas if you think about it, General Dwight D. Eisenhower was a colonel at the start of the war. Very few, with the exception of MacArthur, and I have my own opinions about him, very few generals led through that were, the victors of World War II were the ones that started in the beginning. And again, MacArthur we could have an entirely different conversation on him. But the challenges we had is we fought a 20-year war, but our promotion criteria, that which was considered to be the appropriate path for leadership, in my opinion only, was the same path that was the appropriate path for leadership on September 10th, 2001. If that makes sense.
Makes a lot of sense.
And we became extremely risk adverse. And it kind of comes as a victim of our own success. Because the conflicts we had prior to that were the Gulf War. 90 days, 100-hour, 100-day air campaign, 100 hours on the ground, absolute overwhelming success. The conflict in Serbia, where we absolutely destroyed the Milosevic government using air power alone, no losses of American life. We became accustomed to the quick victory. And we did it to ourselves in a sense, too. I mean, we overran the Afghanistan in no time flat, although I've got an entirely different story about that because I was a part of the initial team that went out in 2001. We had the Thunder run into Baghdad and overran Iraq so quickly We want the quick zero casualty win. Unfortunately, that's not how warfare works. We have to understand that you have to take a risk of mission failure. You have to take the risk of potential casualties in order to accomplish the mission, and you minimize it to the max extent possible. But the answer is never zero. Whereas we have gotten to the point, and you remember as an ODA guy, where we try to mitigate the risk, but we end up killing it by committee. We end up creating so many layers of risk. I wouldn't say mitigation. It's honestly trying to identify them and cover every little thing that we've taken the initiative away from our junior leaders.
Yeah, 100%. As a medic, we couldn't conduct an operation, in training or in real life if we didn't have an HLZ within a certain kilometer distance away, or we didn't have a certain amount of medical supplies on a mission. Like, at some point you have to accept risk, understanding that it's for a greater good. And yeah, we were held back a lot by doing this kind of stuff.
Well, and the problem is we've created a culture in the military, and it's not me alone. General Miley actually wrote about this in 2019. So I'm not speaking, this isn't just my opinion, it's his as well. So I am coming from a source of, at least in good company.
Right.
By creating that culture where we say you have to have a zero risk mission, you have to have zero risk training, we have, or else. The underlying thing that isn't said is or else, right? Now our junior leaders are hanging with that sort of Damocles over their head, where they are, I can't shift objectives or else. I can't make a decision on the ground based on the dynamics of the fight or else. Now they have to sit there and think, well, God, if I do if I shift objectives, if I choose to land on the Y instead of the X, if I make these decisions in real time, I'm going to be held accountable for it because I accepted risk, and I don't have the authority as sergeant, lieutenant, captain, whatever, to accept this risk. And it just becomes easier to send it back up the chain. Well, I can't accept the risk. Maybe the guy in the TOC can accept the risk. Well, I can't accept the risk. Maybe the guy in the KOC can accept the risk. And by the time we get through this pass the buck chain, the objective is burned.
Opportunity's gone.
The opportunity's gone. And that's kind of where we've gone to in the military. General Miley talks about disciplined disobedience, where a leader on the ground can shift objectives, can drop a mission set and pick up another mission set based on what they see on the ground. That we used to be very good at distributed command, if that makes sense. Dispersion of command, of allowing people at the lowest, allowing decisions at the lowest level.
Mm-hmm.
That's really how we won World War II.
Yeah.
Because the sergeants could make the decision on the ground.
Yeah, you trust those you're leading.
You trust those. You trust those leading. And I think part of the other problem we have is infinite information. And I can expand that to society. But as a micro in the military, you have a pred feed. You've got Merc Chat. If everyone knows what that is basically Chat GPT for military.
Mm-hmm.
It's TikTok for military. You've got video feeds. You have all this information coming in. And so now everybody who sees that is sitting there trying to get their hands in the decision-making process. And rather than taking the word of the ground force commander, whereas the ground force commander really should be the final say-so when you're talking about tactical objectives. And we take that, and I can expand that to society in general. We have infinite information, right? So rather than taking a risk, people will sit there and Google it to death.
Mm-hmm.
They'll Google something to death, or they'll look at, they'll do what I call problem admiration. They'll look at a problem from every single angle, but they don't move out with finding a solution. Because again, more information is always coming in. At some point, someone's got to slap the table and say go. And at any one of those times in our own lives, that has to be us.
Yeah. Yeah. In SF, we had, I guess this was just one of my team sergeants. He always talked about a 70% solution. We just need 70% of the information, 70% of the risk mitigated, 70% of anything to start. And we'll figure the other 30% out maybe in real time. And I've applied that to pretty much my whole life at this point, but you really only need 70% of anything to
Well,
get started.
I'll paraphrase Patton. Perfection is the mortal enemy of good.
Mm-hmm. Mount Carmel Veteran Service Center and the Veterans Voice podcast are partnered with Colorado Computer Support IT Pros to handle all of our computing and technology needs. They are veteran-owned, and they're your team for innovative, collaborative IT services and solutions to enhance and support your Colorado business. Here on the show, we talk a lot about business and entrepreneurship. As businesses grow, it's inevitable that you need to outsource IT services. When that time comes for your business, consider Colorado Computer Support IT Pros. So let's I don't know if you've dabbled in it, but let's turn you into like a motivational speaker now. Like with your philosophy of, being a renegade, understanding risk aversion, how would you take that from the military into like entrepreneurship or, family life or pursuing a new career? How would we apply this outside of the military?
I think the first step is mindfulness.
Mm-hmm.
When you're in the military, one of the advantages you have is which way's up. We used to call it the blue womb. Everyone, you know what your mission is, what your objective is, the career path you're supposed to take, that sort of thing. It's kind of set out for you, so you don't have to think about the greater picture. You don't have to be mindful of the world around you, or of your own centered place. Your first sergeant will tell you what you need to do, how to center yourself. You don't need to figure it out for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Like a lot of military members have, one of the biggest challenges they have when they transition is not, what am I going to do with the rest of my life? It's what the hell am I going to wear today?
Mm-hmm.
So the first step is mindfulness. You have to become mindful of the opportunities around you, because sometimes those opportunities look a lot like hard work, and a lot of time the opportunity to say what the hell and do something extraordinary is sometimes kind of masked in the Sturm und Drang, the noise of the big world.
Yeah. The unknown.
The unknowns. Yeah. And it's a scary unknown that's masked through all this noise. But down that path lies greatness. So first is being mindful of those opportunities when they show up. The second is to apply that same courage that allowed you to throw yourself out of an airplane into trying something different, trying something new, to break away from the pack and do your own thing. I mean, there are so many brilliant entrepreneurial ideas that veterans bring to the table, and so much they bring to the table that they kind of quietly go along to get along, sort of like you did in basic training. Nobody wanted to stand out. Nobody wanted in any way. You just wanted to be the faceless person.
Mm-hmm.
And when we break out into the civil world, a lot of veterans just kind of want to, they're a little bit nervous. It's an unknown situation. So rather than standing up and bringing everything that they have to the table, they either don't try for the opportunities, don't bring their full energy and their ideas, just to go along to get along. When, you kind of have to have that courage to at some point say that, I have this great idea and I'm going to give it a try, and you have to bet on yourself. And that is one of the biggest challenges I think veterans have, is betting on yourself.
Yeah, that's a good correlation there. I really enjoy this philosophy, and it comes from experience, clearly.
And it's not just jumping off the cliff and because into the dark water and saying, what the hell. It's you make an informed decision, but it's at some point, and you will only know when it happens to you. You'll know when it happens to you. And everyone has had this point in life, whether it being asking the girl out for a date, deciding to invest in something, your buddy's coffee company, something like that. You have that moment. You've done all you can. And it's time to choose to step into the dark, to try something else, or to take the safe path.
Yeah. Why do you think this is so hard? Like you just said, it was a really good example of being the veteran, the gray man in basic training. But, as we progress in life, why do you think it's so hard to, hey, I'm going to start this new thing. I'm going to be a renegade, and I'm going to pursue something that I'm passionate about. I'm going to root for myself, per se. Why do you think that's so hard?
Because at the end of the day, you could fail.
Yeah.
We talked a little bit about this on our phone call. If you follow a lot of the veteran the transition programs, they discuss, okay, here's what you can do. You get this, here's how you build your resume. Here's how you cookie cutter this. Here's how you can, get this 9-to-5 job, which will get you this middle class income. You get the white picket fence, and that's fine if some people want that. But the thing of it is, you have to be afraid to fail. To be great at anything, you have to be willing to suck at it first.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, especially as veterans, and guys like me too, did 20 years in the military. I mean, who reached what I thought to be was kind of the pinnacle of my career field. It's scary to look in a mirror and be like, you know what? I've got to be afraid to suck again. If I'm going to be great at something outside of I have to learn to suck again. And I didn't like sucking when I was 21 years old. I don't suck anymore. But now I have to be willing to suck again.
Yeah.
And I think there's a little bit of fear of that.
Yeah. It's hard to admit you're a beginner again.
Yeah. It's hard to be a beginner again. And it's hard to be bad at something again, because in order to be good at something, you have to be bad at it first.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I like that. When 3 years of training to become a Green Beret, I think every single day I was scared. I'm a beginner. I don't know any of this stuff. But I think after a few months into it, I started to understand that, okay, they're teaching me. It's okay to be a beginner. And actually, they want me to be a beginner so that they can teach me these skills. Because when I went into it, my previous MOS was EOD.
Mm-hmm,
and I knew nothing about being a Green Beret, except I saw these guys on deployments, and they were really good at stuff. I was like, I don't feel like I'm that good at stuff. But
and as a graduate of the Q course, I mean, not to denigrate. First of all, I have nothing but respect for anyone who tries the Q course.
Yeah,
my hat
sure.
is off to anybody who goes to any selection program. Win, lose, or draw, you had the courage to be there. But I'm sure you ran into guys who, at the end, when it was dark and it was wet and it was cold, they were just like, you know what? Screw this.
Sure.
Forget it. This is. I don't want to be suck. I don't want to be at the bottom of the barrel anymore.
Yeah.
I don't want to be a beginner anymore. I don't want to have to pay my dues anymore. I've already paid my dues over here in this different MOS.
Yeah.
So, I'm done with this.
Yep. Yeah. And on the other hand, I still don't know. It's a mystery. I was never a selection cadre, but I don't know why they pick people. I know why they don't pick people. And it's like you said, they feel like they've already paid their dues, or they feel like they already know everything. And so they don't allow themselves to be curious, to be a beginner again, or they underestimate themselves and they quit. It's someone in the middle that they pick. And I think that's kind of the mentality I adopted, was like, hey, these people, these Green Berets are extreme. Like, this is the top 1% of the military. I have to learn some stuff in here. At no point was I like, hey, I know everything. You guys can't teach me anything. Those are the guys who didn't make it. But at no point was I like, I'm not worthy of this. I can't continue. It's cold, rainy, and I'm hungry, so I quit. It's that middleman.
I'll bet you a steak dinner. It's much like different, but similar to pilot training.
Yeah.
The guy who was most successful is the one who looked at it as a huge adventure.
Yeah.
The people who are the most successful who walked in there wide-eyed like they're on an adventure.
Yeah.
Like, this is going to be something extraordinary is about to happen here.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to be hard and it's going to be miserable, but it's going to be this incredible adventure that I'm on. I think very much pilot training too. I was actually instructor, a pilot training instructor, and wrote some of the syllabi for pilots. I've trained hundreds of pilots.
Mm-hmm.
And the ones who were always the most successful were the ones who walked in with the attitude, I can't wait.
Yeah.
This is going to suck and I can't wait, because it's going to be this amazing adventure.
Yeah.
And I'm going to come out the back end of this totally transformed,
Mm-hmm.
something so extraordinary, so completely different.
Mm-hmm.
And I think was veterans transition back to the civilian life. It's not the end of a career. It's the start of the new adventure.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if people can mentally lock themselves into that mentality that this is a start of something incredible.
Mm-hmm.
This is a start of a new adventure.
Mm-hmm.
Everything in my life has led to this.
Yeah.
Then we'd see a lot more of that courage.
Yeah.
That I wish people would show. And I think we'd see a lot more innovation, a lot more people who would extraordinary people who are stuck in the ordinary.
Yeah.
I think the veteran community is rife with extraordinary people who are trapped in the ordinary.
Mm-hmm.
And I would love to see then break out and become that extraordinary.
Yeah, we're kind of dabbling into like Stoic philosophy here, but if you pursue every hiccup or every obstacle as a potential solution, like, hey, this is an opportunity to learn something new. Take finances, for example. Finances are tight. Okay, I can sit here and struggle and freak out. Or, hey, this is an opportunity to learn a new skill, get a new job, pursue a new job. Everything, like you're saying, is an opportunity to learn, to grow, and to be curious.
Yeah, and then if you take that attitude, in my opinion, then the what the hell moments come.
Yeah.
Then all
the good ones.
The good ones.
What the hell? Let's do it.
Yeah. The what the hell? Let's
Not
do
what
it.
the hell? I'm a victim.
Yeah, the renegade moments come.
Yeah.
If you do that, if you look at it as an opportunity and an adventure, then those moments will start coming, where you start seeing the, hey, your buddy's starting a new coffee company called Black Rifle. You want in on this?
Yeah.
Stuff like that. That'll start showing itself because I think we get so trapped in our own minds that we, again, extraordinary people trapped in the ordinary.
Right.
And the difference between breaking out of the ordinary and extraordinary is just deciding that you are.
A quick shift in perspective.
Just a shift in perspective that you are worthy of the extraordinary.
And then once you make that decision and you start actually moving in the right direction, you start to snowball uphill. You're building confidence in yourself. Like when you were upstanding this Iraqi Air Force, you saw it start to work. You saw these guys start to have honor. Like you were saying, it started to compound.
And what I noticed more than anything, that the point at where everything changed, the moment at which these kids went from being just, volunteering for the military and, hoping they don't get killed, to becoming a true force was when they started having the assess, they started believing. At some moment, there's a moment in time where, and I'm sure you saw it in selection, where you stop thinking that I can't do it, and you start believing that you can.
Like there's actually an option of passing.
Yeah, that I can do this. Yeah, no, or their extraordinary things are ahead. They start believing in themselves that they could do it, that maybe the impossible was possible.
Yeah.
And once you make that decision that the impossible is possible, at that point, everything else is it starts falling into place. Yeah. And of course, there's going to be uphills and downhills, and the danger of stepping into the dark is you might be unsuccessful. Your business might fail. The pretty girl at the bar might tell you to go away. It's possible, but if I'd say 90%, or not 90%, a fair portion of that is to believe. Once you believe something is possible, it becomes so. Once you believe something is impossible, it also becomes so.
For sure. Yeah, I like that a lot. Let's talk about your transition a little bit out of the military into civilian world. How was that?
It was terrible.
Yeah.
I screwed up totally.
Yeah.
Like I said, this is an ongoing philosophy. I consider myself a philosopher, and maybe not necessarily the paragon of that philosophy. I walked out of the military unprepared.
Okay.
And it was my fault. I didn't take advantage of the resources available. I didn't even look for the resources, and maybe to a degree, the military didn't really give me the resources. But I was at the top of the aviation community in the Air Force. I had done everything that I could do. I had every qualification I could have. So I thought I was going to just walk out and go fly for the airlines and, make a large amount of money and be a successful airline pilot. And that was my path. I mean, why would they want me? I failed 3 interviews. 3 HR departments told me, thank you, but no thank you. Major airlines. That was an incredible ego blow. And the reason I failed is I wasn't willing to learn again.
What was your reaction? What were your emotions when you felt that first negative response?
Arrogance, but total arrogance, absolute arrogance. How could they? Yeah. Why would they? At first, it was the steps of coping, anger.
Yeah.
What
you
were
started
they thinking?
Doing this instead of that?
Yeah. What did you do wrong?
Yeah.
What they're screwed up. Obviously, it was some HR person who doesn't like the military or doesn't like short guys or doesn't like dudes wearing blue shirts or whatever. It was their problem. And then I got into the looking. Okay, maybe it wasn't their fault. Maybe I said I'm terrible. I'm awful. I'm the worst guy ever. I obviously was never capable of doing this. I'm not as good as I think I am. Maybe it's best for me to just, shuffle off into a corner and hide. And then I was able to start looking in the mirror and go, what did I do wrong? Okay. And I could boil the answer down as I didn't look for help. I was more worried trying to make them think I was cool than think I was a good fit.
I relate to that.
Yeah, I was more concerned with their personal opinion and how cool I was and how much I had done for the military, and than how I could help them.
Yeah, I relate to that. I bet a lot of people relate to that. I think admitting it is a very honorable thing.
Yeah, so I had to step back and say, you know what, I am not at the top of the game here. I'm a beginner again, but that's okay. Maybe this isn't. This isn't just a culmination of this career path I've been on since I was in pilot training back in 1998. Maybe this is something new, and I have to think of it as something new. I have not just a continuation of where I was, but taking a new path. And once I started thinking through that, becoming a beginner again, being willing to suck again, I went back. One of the companies that I failed the interview with invited me back, and I went in a lot more humble. And rather than saying, "Hey, here's why I'm the greatest guy that's ever walked through your doors," I said, "Here's what I can bring, what I have to bring to you, and I cannot wait to see what I can learn from you. I want to be a part of this, but I want to learn. I want to use this opportunity to make myself better, and hopefully, as a part of your company, make the company better." And I'm at United Airlines now.
Yeah, there you go. People don't like to hear your ego, People don't want to hear why you're the best thing that's ever walked in their door. They want to hear how you can help them.
Yeah, and that was a huge challenge. But the thing is, I knew better. The resources are out there. Mount Carmel is out there. The resources are out there for veterans, and with peer counselors who could have walked me through this this transition.
But you didn't need the help.
But I didn't need the help because retired lieutenant colonel.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't need the help. It's me. I'm an Air Force pilot. So obviously, as a pursued sun god.
Yeah.
No, I needed the help. I didn't look for the help. And then when I finally kind of swallowed my ego and asked for help, it was a complete game changer.
Doors opened. We all need each other.
Well, and the thing is, too, I think is we need people who have been down the path, too. As a veteran community, I wish we had more peer support. I mean, God bless the guys the people at TAPS and the VA. They truly try to do a good job. They do, but they're under-resourced, and they just somebody who need like the career path or the help that a retired lieutenant colonel needs and a retired E8 needs is two entirely different things. And they're trying to make a cookie cutter, and they're trying to help. But what we really need is, hey, I know a guy who was in your shoes and walked your path.
Yeah.
And he can show you where the rocks are.
Yeah.
And those resources are out there, but I just don't think they're well advertised.
We're trying here on the podcast, that's for sure.
This is an extraordinary step. This is an extraordinary step.
I don't know much about it, but I know there's been a lot of cuts to the VA recently. And, it could be a scary thing, but, I don't think it really is. I think it's really important to maintain the resources available at the VA. But we all have each other as veterans, and as veterans, we can help the whole world because we have a ton of experience in resiliency and emotion and hardship. So we don't need to just rely on the VA employees. So it's not a huge, scary thing that, we don't have many. We all have each other. We can all talk to each other. We can all share our experiences, and we can all help each other through our stories.
Well, and the thing that I think we have as veterans too is that there is a brotherhood. It's a family.
Yeah.
Which
is non-binary. A lot of female veterans out there in that brotherhood.
Brotherhood, in the esoteric sense, of course. Yeah. Brotherhood, sisterhood, that sort of thing. And I always tell my friends, bro is a non-binary term.
For sure.
I have
community.
Exactly. I have plenty of people who are my bros and from every gender, shape, creed, and race. we have that. We have that sense of community that a lot of organizations don't have. Maybe cops, maybe firefighters, possibly EMS, but I probably can't expand beyond there. So that if someone says, "Hey, I'm here to help," oh, I have a degree in in psychology and a master's degree from the University of Oxford in clinical psychology. I'm here to help. Great, that's fantastic. I really appreciate your that. But when someone says, "Hey, you know what? You and I were down in forward operating base Warrior at the same time. I know what you're dealing with." Yeah, I was the same way. I left the military after retirement. I left the military after my first tour. I was in the same desert you were. I know your path,
Mhm.
and I can walk you through. I can walk you through to the next step. As a veteran, who are you gonna have more faith in?
Another veteran. Sure. How do you think we can take these skills, this community, this brotherhood, and help civilians who maybe haven't been in the military? Do you think there's a way?
Well, I think first one is to we can start using the lessons that we learned, because when we're out there in our civilian jobs, uh, there are things that translate directly. You were a sergeant. I was an officer. Have you ever had a guy who's had a bad day?
Yeah, all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. Counseling tools that you learned as a sergeant that I learned as an officer. Hey, you okay? Yeah, those things apply
Hmm.
to our coworkers.
Hmm.
You know, when the company's going through a downturn, when things are going, when it's things are going through a hard time, uh, we're the ones who can stand up and say, "Okay, guys, let's all get together. Let's organize. Let's figure out how we can attack this problem and solve this problem." Because I find a lot of times leadership isn't especially in the civilian world, is not as endemic as it is in the military. Civilian world is full of managers.
Yeah.
There are managers galore, and
Yeah.
they might be the senior manager, they may be the CFO or that sort of thing, but they're not necessarily leaders. And when hard times come or a tough project comes, the leader is the guy who says, "All right, guys, let's get together." And usually it's just the one who says, "Hey, let's follow me. Let's all figure it. We will find a way."
Yeah. Yeah. I like that. Here's an idea. What the hell? Let's try it.
Yeah. What the hell? And then yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And to empower our subordinates.
Hmm.
The whole concept of leaders eat last
Hmm.
is built into our DNA as military,
Yeah.
but rank hath its privileges tends to be what I've seen in some civilian sectors.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I like what you said, enable, empower. That's something I learned a lot in the military is you have to enable and empower your subordinates to lead themselves, to gain knowledge themselves and be motivated and become honorable themselves. And you can't micromanage, which is something I feel like doesn't exist as much in the civilian world. I don't
Mhm.
know,
Well, and it's self-perpetuating though. That's the
For sure it
beautiful
is.
thing of it. It's self-perpetuating because everyone had their leader in the military or their boss in the civilian community. They're like, "I want to be like that guy."
Hmm.
So if you can be that guy, you can set the example of selfless leadership, of resiliency, of doing things honorably, doing the right thing for the right reasons.
Hmm.
Not cutting corners because it's cost effective.
Right.
Um, then those people around you it's going to permeate to them too.
Hmm. Yeah.
That you can be the core that builds a culture.
Yeah. People who micromanage don't have faith in themselves. That's kind of my philosophy
Oh,
behind
absolutely,
that.
100%.
But yeah, well, at the end of every Veterans Voice podcast episode, we usually share a story. So I know you probably have a lot of stories as a pilot. Maybe it's a motivational story, maybe it's an emotional story, maybe it's a sad story, inspirational story. But just share a story from a pilot's perspective to the
Pilot's perspective.
yeah.
I think it goes. I'll go to this. The story. The moral of the story, as I'm gonna start out with, is you never know. You never know what's going on. And I get a little emotional on this story. I was 2003 flying a Special Operations Support KC-135s over Iraq, and we were supporting Special Operations aircraft on a mission. And our rules of engagement were very much, don't be out when the sun comes up. You know, your night operations. If don't be gone when the sun comes up.
Mhm.
And your job is to push back. And we're supporting the operational aircraft, and we're right there at the firing orbits of the AC-130s. Supporting the sun starts getting real pink in the sky. You know what I'm talking about, when
Yeah.
that sun starts coming over the horizon. And we're like, we got to go, guys. This is our mission set. Our operational set says it's time to go. Like, we can't go. You got to stay on station. And my orders were to break contact and return to base. I hadn't received anything to countermand that, but our receivers were begging us to stay on station. Just a little bit longer, stay on station. Okay. So we went and got gas from the reliability tanker, received fuel, and then went back and we were refueling. And again, we're well within engagement range for enemy air systems, and we're a big fat defenseless aircraft flying around going, guys, it's getting real bright out here. Just stick with us a little bit longer. Okay. They need us. We're going to do this. So we stuck with them until the sun was well high in the sky. And finally we're like, we get released by them. We climb as high as we can to get away from all the things that, down on the ground that make airplanes go away. And we start zorching back to base as fast as we can. We're about, I think, 7 hours late. We're in contact. They know where we're at.
Right.
But I land, and the wing commander meets me at the aircraft. I'm the aircraft commander. And I think, I'm done. I am cooked. Right. I'm like, oh boy, here it comes. If I get my butt chewed off, I'll consider myself lucky.
Yeah.
And he goes, you know what you guys just did? I'm like, no, sir. It's Jessica Lynch rescue.
Really?
The teams had gone in and were rescuing our POWs. The reason that we stayed on station as long as we did is because the ground forces were disinterring the fallen Americans with their helmets. They were taking them to bring them home. There were 8 Americans, I believe it was 8 Americans that had perished and were buried outside that hospital. And they didn't have the tools or equipment, but those ground forces, God bless them, those are the true heroes, stayed to disinter them with their bare hands in their helmets so they could take them home. And we stayed giving them air cover so that they knew that we were still out there.
Wow, what a story.
And that was to me, it was just, you just never know. You don't know. Sometimes you don't understand the impact you're having until afterwards, and maybe you never do.
Did you have a gut feeling?
We knew something important was happening. There was you can call it providence or God or a higher power telling us, this is where you need to be. This is what you have to do. Stay. Don't. And of course, we're one thing I will say about the Air Force is we'll never leave an American uncovered.
Right.
We will never leave you alone. I was actually part of a search and rescue operation where I was at the time the only person overhead who was talking to the guys on the ground who were shot down in a CH-47 in Iraq. And even though we were unarmed, our crew made it clear we will not and we will never uncover them. They will. No matter what, the ground forces will always know there's a U.S. Air Force aircraft overhead watching them.
Yeah, and that's I remember that story too. You were the only ones in radio contact, so you were trafficking, right?
Yeah, actually, it was fun. Turned out well. It was a funny story. Yeah. CH-47 went down east of Baghdad. We were the only ones to heard them go down. So we maintained a cap over them, air patrol, and we were passing their radio traffic to the search and rescue forces, and we ended up becoming the on-scene command. And inadvertently, by accident, we were ordered off station by the command and control element, and they didn't know. In their defense, they didn't understand what was happening, and we had to make the gut call. We had to make that decision, make the what the hell call, and say we refused an order. I refused an order from higher headquarters to go off station to refuel a strike aircraft. What I didn't know and they didn't know is the strike aircraft were coming to support the CSAR. So when they pushed the strike aircraft to us, they were telling us, you guys are supposed to refuel us over here. We're supposed to be support. We need to talk to Spark 22, on-scene commander for a shoot down. You guys understand that, we had to come to you. And I'm like, yeah, look at your GPS, buddy. It's straight down. We're Spark 22. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we happen to be the tanker and the command and control element here for this. So, okay.
Yeah. How was the response to that?
Our leadership was happy with us. Mm-hmm. It took a bit to get sorted out. I ended up having to talk to my squadron commander for a little while on that one. But at the end of the day, we got them all home.
Yeah. Wow. Man, and then you never know what's going on up there either, So it's like you never know what's going on down there. Us ground troops never knew what was going on up there, but there was this connection.
And that's a beautiful thing, right? Yeah. There was this faith. You knew that you didn't know what was going on up there, but you knew someone was there, right?
Someone was talking to someone important that was going to help.
Yeah, and if you knew if you called for help, then someone was coming for you, mm-hmm. and someone was going to help you. And just like us, if I ended up on the ground inadvertently, mm-hmm. because aerodynamics no longer work when your wing gets blown off, mm-hmm. I knew for sure an ODA team was coming through the door to get me,
for sure,
and that no one was going to leave me behind. And man, that bond that we have as veterans, I think it just translates for life. And that's why I as soon as something changes in my my dealings with other people, mm-hmm. in my dynamic, when I find out they're a fellow veteran,
for sure. Yeah.
Because we know that we're there for each other. Mm-hmm. We're there for each other on the ground in Afghanistan, in the air over Iraq, or on the streets in Colorado Springs.
Yeah, for sure. Well, those are some amazing stories. I appreciate you sharing your philosophy of what the hell. I learned a lot.
I'm glad motivated. You liked it. It's like I said, it's I won't say I'm a paragon of it, but I do try to be a philosopher of it.
Yeah. Well, it makes a lot of sense. If you're too risk adverse, you're not willing to go out and take that next step. You're too maybe egotistical to learn something new, admit you don't know something. You're too scared to be a beginner. That's where the excitement in life is. It's being a beginner. It's being curious and learning something new. And you've been a salient example of that.
Well, and I think honestly, if more people were to just stop looking at the next step as the end of something, and look at it as the beginning of something extraordinary, even if you don't know what it is, even if the field is gray ahead of you and you don't see the path, if you just believe that something extraordinary is out there, then it really changes the dynamic.
Yeah, it starts with believing in yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. I wanted to call you sir, but Joey, I appreciate you.
Please, this is Joey.
Utmost respect for you and your career. Thanks for coming on the Veterans Voice podcast, sharing some wisdom, sharing your philosophy, and I know you motivated some people out there.
Maybe if I reach one person, or if somebody finds that it resonates for them, then man, it was totally worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks again.